So how strong is the Scarab from Adventure Time, Fionna, and Cake? Well, first, let's look at one of the arguments that are often used against him being strong in the first place, which is the fact that he was frozen by the Winter King. However, my problem with that argument is that he's not the first powerful character that this happens to. For example, Finn and Jake, throughout the show, even as they got stronger and stronger with time, have still been able to be frozen over and over again. Not only that, but characters like the Elementals, and I'm not talking about only the Elementals from the present time, which are arguably weaker, but that's how Evergreen did it even millions of years ago, when you could argue those were experienced and very powerful Elementals. And one argument which I hear people use is that, well, the Lich is stronger than the Scarab because, again, the Scarab was frozen by the Winter King. But in Season 2 of Adventure Time, while being super buff and super juiced up, the Lich was frozen by the Ice King and defeated eventually. Obviously, he comes back because he's the Lich, but to say that he's weaker than the Lich because he could get frozen, even though the Lich himself has been imprisoned and lost because of it, I think doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it makes more sense to say a lot of characters in Adventure Time are weak to being frozen in ice. But I do agree that physically, he's not the most threatening individual. But also, that's because mostly he's inconsistent. Like, yeah, he's stronger than Fionna and Cake, but then he struggles with Fionna and Cake. Or, for example, how he barehanded fought off like 3 or 4 gods and killed most of them with his, like, again, bare hands without his weapon. But then he can fight, almost regular humans and he doesn't kill them. Now again, to be fair, those humans weren't overpowering him or even giving him a fight. But the fact that he was even like just a little bit of struggle that he's shown against them should have not been there. But I'm just gonna chuck that to the fact that the plot requires him to be stalled until everything is resolved. So he must go around and do random stuff instead of actually finishing his goal, which is stupid because of the writing. But it just makes it just creates an inconsistency. But if you take the character as his face value, as his usual level, where the plot doesn't have to dumb him down and make him weaker than he actually is, then you will get his actual strength. Because this guy's whole job is to put in place, to imprison, to kill other cosmic entities. And you have to remember, like, the weakest cosmic entity, cosmic being, the weakest god we have seen in Adventure Time is like maybe Party God, who is still strong enough to fight the Ice King. And Ice King is a strange case because he could be anywhere from able to destroy a mountain or create a mountain out of ice to some of his fights, like with Flame Princess, are calculated to be anywhere from island to continental level in terms of the damage they have done. And there's even some feats that he has that are like multi-continental or something. As well as the fact that I'm pretty sure in that one timeline where he freezes the whole planet, I think that feat is like moon level or planet level. So even if you say that the Scarab is stronger than like Party God, who's the weakest god we've seen, even if you say all the gods he's fighting are just that weak, he still would be like planet level at the very least. But like I said, he's still stronger than, for example, Cake. And Cake, by the end of the show, is basically about as strong as Jake, because Prismo gave her about the same powers to reflect Jake. And by the end of the show, she kind of manages to use her powers properly. She masters her powers, and some would say she's even better than Jake at it. So, in that regard, she should be about as strong as Jake, and the Scarab is still stronger. And if you compare that with Finn and Jake, well, Finn and Jake have fought characters like Orgolorg, characters like Fern, characters like the Leech, and in Together Again, though those visions of the characters are dead. But those versions of the characters were strong enough to fight the Undertakers, which 3 of them are able to destroy a whole dimension, a whole dead world, which is a universe, and they were even able to fight New Death, who himself could destroy 50 universes, basically. I mean, yeah, at first they couldn't touch him because he's non-corporeal and all that stuff, but the moment they got to be able to, actually interact with him, they beat him. And he's, again, basically multiversal. Scarab was also pretty confident in fighting the Ice Vampire King, and keep in mind that the Vampire King is not only stronger than, well, basically the main gang in the Prime universe, but also you add Ice King on top of that. If Scarab actually can take him, it's pretty robust evidence that he's obviously stronger than like the main crew of Marceline, PB, Finn, and Jake at the bare minimum. And the Ice King's crown adds another layer to that. And if we assume the Scarab knows about the Vampire King's true essence, that is even more impressive because PB mentions that his true essence is so strong that it can actually affect reality itself. And when Marcy entered this form, she was able to defeat one of those beasts that Golb created, which now you could argue maybe it's like a scholar of Golb. So if those beasts are even comparable to the Lich, it means that the true essence of the Vampire King is easily beyond the Lich. And you add to that the crown, and then you add the fact that Scarab is confident he can defeat him, puts Scarab a level beyond the Lich and Orgolorg and all those characters that the main crew of the show can actually fight. For what is worth, he seems to be on a similar level of importance to the gods of gravity and electricity and light, and gods that are part of other fundamentals of the multiverse itself. He seems to be on their level, if not on a higher level, because, again, if they mess up themselves, he might be the one that has to, catch them and even kill them, potentially. And if we look at his little wanted list that he had, some of the characters that are there are kind of crazy because one of them is the Cosmic Owl. And the Cosmic Owl is actually pretty strong because he can make dreams into reality. And aside from that, he has actually a power so great that, for example, Orgolorg needs to trick him into helping him, right? Not only that, but his powers can affect characters like Billy, Finn, Jake, and the Lich. And just the Cosmic Owl is one of those characters that is on the level or a similar level with Prismo, right? Just goes to show that Scarab is trusted with capturing those levels of characters. Outside of that, we also have Martin, who gained a new mode of existence when the comet took him, meaning that potentially the Scarab is trusted with capturing characters that are on the level of the essence of a catalyst comet, which is insane. And perhaps the best part, the best scaling that there is for the Scarab is the fact that he is somewhat superior in the hierarchy than Prismo. And not only is Prismo kinda scared of him, but he defeats Prismo and he is able to imprison Prismo. Now, Prismo eventually, after a few days, is able to escape, but keep in mind that if the Scarab had Prismo the whole time, he could have just reinforced the thing that was keeping him down. The only reason Prismo was able to kinda escape a little was because the Scarab threw his box away for whatever reason, instead of just putting him in his pocket or something. But imprisoning Prismo is actually very impressive because Prismo is a character that is not only situated beyond space and time, meaning that it's possible you could argue he is fourth, if not fifth or sixth dimensional, depending on how you want to interpret Adventure Time, maybe even stronger than that. But also remember that he can create universes and timelines as he wishes, literally as he wishes. Well, as other people wish, basically. So Scarab is able to essentially imprison this guy who's not only beyond space and time, but can destroy and create universes on a whim, which just shows how strong Scarab is. And perhaps the best feat he's had is the fact that Golb, who is even beyond Prismo, Golb absolutely eradicated the Lich, and Prismo couldn't even help Simon with Betty when she fused with Golb, meaning that Golb is on a higher level He's on a higher plane. He's on a just a different level than characters like the Lich. The Lich is basically an ant to Golb, and Golb even was able to basically transform him in a Tetrix block, right? But also, he's above characters like Prismo. You know, Prismo even says, I have limits. Limits which Golb is outside of. However, even though Golb could kill the Lich easily, Golbetti couldn't kill the Scarab. Yes, Golbetti hurts him. Golbetti is able to do some damage to him, but is not able to actually kill him. It just does enough damage that he splits into multiple creatures. And those creatures are stated to be, and Scarab itself are stated to be immortal. But obviously this is a different level of immortality. Like, technically the Lich is immortal, but it seems like if you somehow don't give him any way of escaping or transferring to something else, you could actually erase him. But with the Scarab, it seems like even a character on the level of Golb, a level of, you know, chaos itself, the embodiment of chaos, a conceptual being, someone who is beyond space and time, and someone who's stronger than Prismo, who is multiversal, who Prismo himself, by the way, may I add, is stronger than Life and Death, right? Death is able to destroy 50 universes. If Prismo is stronger than him, and Golb is on a tier above them, right? You can imagine how strong Golb is, and all of that just to say that Golb couldn't kill the Scarab, meaning that Scarab's actually pretty strong in terms of what he can withstand. Sure, he transforms into bugs which are weak, but the point is he's very hard to kill, even on that level of strength. And I'm saying this because, I mean, look at the finale. In the finale of Fionna and Cake, he gets demoted to being a Wishmaster. And again, Wishmasters like Prismo can create universes on a whim. So him being demoted to being able to do that is kind of wild. And perhaps the thing that we should talk about the most is the fact that he doesn't do most of those feats on his own, except the durability feat, or survivability, I guess you could call it, with Golb, because most of his feats come from the fact that his weapon is probably the strongest, or one of the strongest weapons we have seen in Adventure Time, period. His weapon is what allows him to imprison all those gods. A plethora, a pantheon of gods have been imprisoned by him, including Prismo. Not only this, but his weapon is actually strong enough, or I guess it's not strength, but it would be a hex ability that not only allows him to transport from universe to universe, dimension from dimension, timeline to timeline, but it has a property of erasure. He can erase universes with this tool. He can erase parts of reality, including people, which is kind of insane. So you have a weapon that can imprison multiversal level beings, but also can erase things on a fundamental level. This character is actually pretty strong, and the only reason he loses is because he's dumb and doesn't use his weapon all the time. If I was him, I would just use the weapon, like exactly how he did in his first appearance. The first thing he does is he dodges an attack and uses his weapon, and then he wins. If he did that with every single character he faced, instead of just running after them, he would have won every single fight. But because the plot requires him not to, he doesn't do it. It's one of those things where the character is very strong, the show shows us how strong he is, but he can't show that strength all the time, because otherwise the main characters will lose automatically. So in conclusion, Scarab is strong enough that multiversal level beings like Golb cannot kill him, and is strong enough that he is demoted to being a Wishmaster, which can create universes and destroy universes, and that's like, again, a demotion for him. As well as he's able to erase things from existence, like universes even, and also he's able to imprison multiversal level beings with his weapon. So yeah, I would say he's pretty strong actually.